Today we're taking a look at another round of cool curb stalls. Sometimes you can have the most fun on the simplest objects, which is where our good old friend the curb comes in. And it may not be the coolest looking type of skateboarding from the outside, but when you're the one doing the skating, it can sure be a lot of fun. So for our first trick, we're going to keep it relatively simple with a Fakie 50-50. So this is exactly what it sounds like. You're getting into a 50-50 stall, except you're popping in Fakie. This one's fun if you know how to do regular 50-50 stalls, because it adds in just a tiny bit more difficulty. So definitely try this if you're just trying to branch out a little bit from your regular stall. Obviously you should know how to do Fakie Ollies, and probably be comfortable just getting into those regular 50-50s. And there's really not much to break down here. You're just going to approach the curb going Fakie. Make sure you're not going too fast, because if you are, you'll probably fall off balance. And then as you get close enough, you're going to pop Fakie, and make sure that you kind of push your board out in front of you so you can land up on the curb. And then once you've gotten up on your trucks, to get out, I personally like to do a little Fakie frontside pivot. But I suppose if you wanted to, you could also pop out straight. Either way though, the main fun of this one comes from the way you're popping into it. And I'm going to leave it at that and be sort of brief on this one because it leads right into our next trick, which is a slightly harder version but a way more fun one. And that is the 180 to 50-50 to 180 out. So if you had the first one down with a Fakie 50-50, this is basically just adding in one extra rotation in the beginning. You'll roll up with the curb behind you, and then you'll do a frontside 180 and land in a 50-50 stall. And then just like the first trick, I sort of just do a Fakie frontside pivot to pull out. Aside from knowing how to do a regular 50-50 stall, of course you'll probably want to know frontside 180s, as well as just being comfortable doing a Fakie frontside pivot. And if you want to practice this entire motion on flat, you can do a frontside 180 and then quickly go right into a Fakie frontside 180. So the main thing with this is you should start off slow so that when you do the 180, you can actually get your trucks locked in and you're not overshooting one way or the other. And that'll probably be the hardest part at first, is doing the 180 and getting your trucks actually in the right position. So I would just practice doing the 180 into the stall and don't even worry about coming out yet. And then if you wanted to get the feeling separately, you could set your board up on the curb and kind of do the Fakie frontside pivot out. And then really it's just a matter of putting it all together where you roll up, do a frontside 180 and land in the stall. And then relatively quickly, you put some pressure on your tail and turn out frontside. Up next, we're going to switch things up with a Nollie nose stall. So in the past, I've talked about regular nose stalls and these little ones where you don't even ollie, which in my opinion are among some of the easier stalls you can do. So now I'm going to attempt to actually make it difficult by doing a Nollie into it. So yeah, as you're rolling up towards the curb, you do a Nollie, get your nose up on top and land in a nose stall, and then pull out of it. You should have your Nollies down before you do this one, and you don't need to have the highest ones in the world, but obviously you'll need to be able to pop them at least a little bit over a curb. So what makes this one so hard is getting the timing down for when you're going to pop the Nollie. If you're coming at the curb too fast and you pop too late, then you're just going to hit your nose against the side of the curb. But also you're going to want to make sure that you're close enough so that when you do pop the Nollie, you actually land up on top. Your goal should be to get up in that nose stall and have all your wheels in the air. Make sure those back ones aren't touching the ground. And then from here, after balancing, you're just going to put your back wheels down and kind of pull out of it. This one seems relatively simple, but it can be deceptively hard if your Nollies aren't really on point. And as an alternative, you could also just do a Fakie Ollie into a tail stall, which is the same exact concept, just in a different stance, because a lot of people find Fakie easier than Nollie. For our fourth curb stall, we're going to keep it relatively simple with a Feeble. So this is probably the easiest one on the list. It's pretty much just like you're going to do a regular 50-50 stall, except your front wheels and truck go over the curb while your back ones stay in the stall. It's relatively easy to balance, and it's also pretty fun. So again, make sure you have your 50-50 stalls down. And as I mentioned, this is the position your board is going to be in when you're in the Feeble stall. So you may want to start your board off in that position on the curb and then jump on just to kind of see what it feels like to stand in that. And because it is slightly at an angle and it might feel a little weird to you at first, you can set your board up in that Feeble position and then practice just getting out of it. So for the main stall portion of this, you're going to head straight towards the curb at a pretty low to medium speed. And then you're going to pop your board up just like you're going to do a 50-50, except you're going to purposely try to push your front wheels over the edge. And once you've kind of gotten up onto the edge, keeping your weight forward over the board is going to be really important because you don't want to lean too far one way or the other. You'll probably have to feel it out for a little while, but you can sort of see how there's kind of two different ways to do this. There's the kind of easier way where your board isn't really too angled to the side and your board's kind of like flat on top of the curb, but your wheels are still over. And then there's the one that's like slightly more legit where your board is kind of angled better. So you can definitely experiment and kind of see which one feels more comfortable at first for you. But once you've gotten up into the stall, it's just as easy as slightly pushing down on your tail and turning out of it. Up next, we have the 50-50 to board stall. So I think that this one is a slightly harder one, but it's really fun to do, but it's also kind of lame looking when you come out. But what you're doing is olling up into a 50-50 stall, and then rotating your board and body off of that into a board stall, and then doing your best to kind of come out of it and turn around. Like I said, getting out of this on a curb is kind of inelegant and it looks stupid, but if you were to do this on a slightly higher ledge and you're good at pulling out of board stalls, then this would look way cooler. So once again, just like the others, you should know how to do the 50-50 stall, and probably be comfortable doing little board stalls, at least on the curb. And then knowing how to do some sort of fakie pivot, whether it's frontside or backside to get out, is going to help you a lot. So assuming you have the 50-50 stall down, the next thing to practice would be having your board in the stall, and then scooping it around to get into a board. And I say scoop it around because I'm using my back foot in the toe side pocket, and then swinging my shoulders so they're going backside and the board is turning. To me, it sort of feels like you're doing a backside revert on flat, and you may have to let off your weight a little bit on your board so that it can freely turn. After you've gotten that down, then it's really just like you're in a normal board stall, and you can choose your preference of frontside or backside and then just kind of pull out of it. It's maybe not the prettiest one, but it's definitely a hard one and it's fun to do. And for our final cool curb stall, we have the Crook To Shove. For this one, you're going to roll up along the curb, pop your board up into a crooked stall, and from there, you're going to do a nollie shove it out. You should probably know how to do crooked stalls beforehand and nollie shove it, because essentially you're just going to combine the two. So the first thing to watch out for is when you're going to do the crooked stall, you're not going too fast or else your weight's going to get thrown off balance. You kind of want to lean your weight back over your board so you're not going to fall too far forward, and then this will give you the time to actually stall so that you can kind of prepare for the shove it out. And then the shove it should just feel like a regular nollie shove it. It may be a little harder to aim because you're coming off the curb, but you'll just have to experiment with how much power you're going to put into the shove. And once you have the steps down, you just kind of put them together, ollie up, get into the crook, and shove out. So those are just a few more cool curb stalls. This video is actually a part 2 in a series, so if you want to check out the stalls in the first video, then click on the link in the card or the description. Like I mentioned in the very beginning, skating a curb might not be the coolest thing in the world, but it's definitely a fun thing to do if you're just kind of messing around or having some fun with yourself or some friends. So definitely don't underestimate the coolness of caressing a curb. As always, I'd like to thank my wonderful Patreon pledgers. And I'd like to thank you for watching, and you can like and subscribe if you want.